Hi, welcome to Sense 101 Life Club. My name is Dr. Knjacob. In Sense 101 Life Club, we train, coach, mentor, and inspire people to achieve their God-given destinies. Sense 101 Life Club, inspiring generations. Today's topic, starting all over again from ground zero. Starting all over again from ground zero. It was around 4:30 p.m. Sunday, the 20th of March this month. I went for some swimming for about 30 minutes, and I wanted to do 20 routes. About the 15th lap, I realized I was training, and I thought this was just fatigue because I had a heavy program I was concluding for Kenya Commercial Bank. And it was quite heavy. But then I realized even before I finished the 18th lap that I was about to drown, which was unusual. I could hardly breathe. I began coughing blood. And the next moment I was in hospital. I've never been hospitalized in my entire lifetime. And I recall the doctor telling me that they're going to admit me. I said, no, you can't admit me. And we argued with the two lady doctors for almost 5 minutes before they told me, we are not just admitting you, we are taking you to HDU. I was already on oxygen. And for a man who has never been in hospital before, that was quite a story. And I was on life-saving machines. And then I thought, 9 days earlier, I had written an article on 11th of March, precisely 7 p.m., on From Ground Zero. I had organized a very nice message on how you should start from ground zero and reach the top and relaunch yourself based on stories from different people in sports, in politics, in administration, in business. And then it hit me. I am not above life. I'm also below life. And I'm also below that message. I even had the audacity to write in an article which got over 100,000 views, known as From Ground Zero, that trouble comes in our lives at the most unexpected moment without invitation. I even had the audacity to add, it comes wearing many hats. For example, sickness, disease, death of a loved one. Sudden news, for example, you are diagnosed with a terminal sickness. Or you've just lost income, you've lost a job, you've lost a business. Or you are in politics and maybe your election has just been stolen after investing so heavily. Or maybe someone is working your downfall in the marketplace. Or you are a victim of a terrorist attack. Or a deal going sour and your entire pension sinks. Trouble comes without an invitation. The challenge is that most people go ballistic when trouble comes as though life were generally easy, as though life should be easy. Psychiatrist M. Scott Peck begins his best-selling book, The Road Less Traveled, with these words: life is difficult. And then he proceeds to wonder why many people behave as though life were generally easy. Even the scriptures do admit that life is difficult. I came across a scripture in Job 14:1. Few are the days of a man born of a woman, and they are full of trouble. In reality, in this life, you are either in trouble, or you have just emerged out of trouble, or you are headed for trouble. Now, 5% is what happens to you. 95% is whether you respond or react to what happens to you. Challenges, trials, temptations, and troubles make us stronger. They can either make you or break you. You can either grow through them or go through them. And the choice is in your hands. But you'll never graduate from trouble. Even though you have gone through a lot of issues in the past, I am not a prophet of doom, but the reality is trouble still waits you ahead of you. So you'll never graduate out of it. So tonight, I want to share with us some 5 principles, and by this tip, By this recording, you require this message someday, not very far. I'm going to share with you some 5 principles that will keep you going. When you're at that level, you feel like losing it. Number one, everybody gets broken. Everybody gets broken. I came to realize that every human being has some custom flows. Some are physical, some are emotional. You might not want to share with others, but there are some inadequacies within us. And you tend to think other people are having their Mayday. There are no perfect parents, no perfect marriages, no perfect couples, no perfect businesses, no perfect people exist on this planet. Life has a way of breaking every one of us. Even giants do fall. On the 5th of July 2014, when then he was in his 22nd birthday, Neymar Jr. was given a very bad kick on his back and he broke his spinal cord. This is an athlete. This is somebody who practices offenry, but here he was grounded. And some football analysts believe that one of the major reasons Brazil lost despite having the home ground advantage was Neymar getting out of the game. If you refresh your memory, for those of you who like football, I'm not a football fan. I just read everything. For those of you who like football, I think they lost 7-1 when they were playing with Germany. You can confirm that? Yes. They lost 7-1. And one reason is this young man. But the good thing is, when he was in that hospital bed, he kept on playing the game and watching the game. And when he got out, he began to exercise. He refused to live the life of a vegetable and bounced back. And today he's still one of the leading stars on the face of the earth. But he didn't cause it. Sometimes we cause trouble to come along our way. I've been a fan of a pastor. Many of you may never have heard about him. His name is Dr. Bryant Jamal. At the age of 29, perhaps he was the most successful pastor living, with an audience of about 12,000 congregants every single Sunday. At the age of 29, that's quite a story. He was on national TV. And then one single ordeal, an extramarital affair, broke his family in one day, and the congregation dropped from 12,000 members to just a few hundreds. And he felt like quitting. You see, I can tell you this. I've been in public domain for so long. When you're in the public spotlight, you're never given the opportunity to process in privacy. And here's a man who was castigated in social media perhaps than any other man of God. And definitely he felt like quitting everywhere he went, whether in a barber shop, in a supermarket, in a gas station. People are just discussing his story. This is very humiliating. Fortunately, his father happens to be a bishop at Los Angeles. He gave him a call and said, Dad, please get me a church in California. I can't continue in Baltimore anymore. But the father told him, look, if you're doing this for approval, then it was a performance. If you're doing it because it was a divine assignment, you're going to go back to the same church, preach with the same passion, with the same zeal, with the same charisma. And you can imagine he was there the very first Sunday. And you know, human beings are strange. God doesn't judge us, but men and women judge you. They are looking at an immoral guy, but God is looking at work in progress. And so he decided to continue preaching. And he continued preaching, and the first message was, I am a sinner, and this is what I did. And I pray for forgiveness. Some people left. But 3 years later, but you know what, 3 years later, the wife who walked out on him went back to church. They're not yet married again. He decided he's not looking for someone, but she's back to church as a member now. There are some wives who don't stand with you when you go through trouble. No, there are some husbands who don't stand with you when you go through trouble. There are some friends who don't stand with you when you go through trouble. Is that so? Yes. No, in reality, you don't lose friends. You get to know who your true friends were. In reality, you don't lose a wife. You get to know whether you had a wife. In reality, you don't lose a husband, because when you are saying the vows, you say it for better or for worse. It was not this worse. No. This one. No. Now you get to know whether you really had family when you go through such trying moments. The good news is, long ago, he's gone through it. And God has given him strength. We grow through adversity. He's a much better pastor. He's a more focused man of God. The congregation is still smaller than it was. But I believe he's still a young guy. I believe that he's going to do far better because he owned up. He didn't try to cover up his sins. But you know, many times, we don't cause trouble. Yes, there are times you're responsible. Many times, we are not responsible. Can you imagine at the age of 9, Marvin Oprah was brutally raped by a relative. And between the ages of 10 and 14, she had a series of physical and sexual incestuous molestations from several relatives. She didn't cause it. And what happens at that specific age, it can injure your self-esteem for a lifetime. But she says it is that ordeal that gave her an inspiration to want to look for a voice for the voiceless. It is what she went through that made her empathize with the quote-unquote small people, with what they go through on a day-to-day basis. And she was able to revamp from her ground zero. It can get lower than that. And the reason I'm saying this, greatness is not the absence of challenges, but it's the mastery of challenges. Most of the great people who've lived on this planet, if I had all the time, I would prove to you that historically speaking, most great people went through mundane circumstances. It is not the absence of troubles, but it's how, whether you respond or react. President Obama, for instance, his father, of course, you all know, he died of drunk driving in the streets of Nairobi. So he grew up without a father like some of us. But unlike many of us, the mother kept on marrying different races. And he found himself between the ages of 6 and 10 in Indonesia with a Muslim father whom they never agreed. And for lack of a better word, the mother dumped him in Hawaii to be raised by the grandparents. In his own confession, he found himself with an identity crisis, a black man raised by white grandparents, a stepfather who was Asian, a father who was black and never concerned. It was so bad that he resolved to go into substance abuse, in his own admission, marijuana and cocaine. How low can it get? But at some point he realized he's not going to change his future by whining. And he resolved to work his way out to success. And in 1983, he graduated from Columbia University with a political science major. He went to work in Chicago in the majorly black neighborhood. At that point, he realized he would never grow in his career unless he had a legal degree. Very much like Kenya. I don't know why in this country everything has to be led by lawyers. IEBC must be led by a lawyer. Why? I mean, you're counting kuras. Why can't I read? My background is maths. We can have a lawyer in the committee. Sorry, lawyers in our midst. I even dare tell the lawyers in our midst, sorry, that even Judicial Service Commission doesn't have to be led by a lawyer. It can be led by a manager. It's true. Organizations can be led by anyone who has management skills. So it was the same case in the US. So Obama realized rather than fight the system, he needs a law degree. You see, most of us just gave up because you have met a certain stumbling block. So he decided in 1988 to go to Harvard School of Business. And in the 1990-1991 academic year, he was elected the first black president of the Harvard Law Review. And that gave him a lot of media publicity and ushered him into a brilliant political career. He refused to stay at the ground where he was carpeted by marijuana. You too can refuse to stay at ground zero. Everybody gets broken. Even giants do fall. The difference between winners and losers is the ability to rise up from the ashes and bounce back to victory. The greatest difference between winners and losers is the ability to hold on. The real measure of faith is the ability to hang on, staying the course. Principle number 2. Don't crash after the fall. Don't crash after the fall. At the age of 13, a little boy by the name Ted was told by his doctor he will never live to realize his 16th birthday. His body was failing him. There was a problem with medical science in those days. They thought that they could cure asthma through smoking and drinking whiskey. How bad can it get? And that's exactly what was advised by the doctors. It was getting worse and worse, out of control. It was severe asthma. The father made things worse. He thought that the boy wanted fresh oxygen, so he would drive him in an open vehicle to breathe some fresh oxygen all over the neighborhood, which was making things worse. But fortunately, the father bought a small gymnasium for the young man to do some exercises. That one worked. That one worked. Because in his 20s, he joined one of the boxing clubs in that state, and he became one of the leading boxers in New York. Later on in life, he decided to try his hand in politics. He thrived so well, so much so that on 20th of January 1901, he was inaugurated the US president. His full name is Theodore Roosevelt. Most of Americans today call him Ted. In those days, the Constitution of the US did not bar anyone from going for 2 terms. So he didn't like how his successor was running the country for the next 4 years. So in 1912, he decided to throw his heart back to politics. But on 14th of September, someone decided to shoot him down. But the bullet missed the target, the heart, went to the right side of his ribs. Now, where he was supposed to speak on the podium was about a kilometer away, and he decided to walk with the bullet in there. When he reached the podium, he began his speech. Gentlemen and ladies, I'm not sure whether you know what has just happened. I've just been shot. They're looking at this guy. And some of the people, like they normally do in politics, they began to shout, liar, liar. He had to remove his coat and show off the blood-stained shirt. Then he went into his coat, removed a bullet-riddled 50-page speech, and delivered a speech for the next 90 minutes while still bleeding. Some historical records say 60 minutes, but even if it's 5 minutes, while still bleeding. But then the doctor said that saved his life because it made the bullet settle down. By the way, it was never removed. He died with it many years later. He is a guy who chose not to give up. I want to pick 1 or 2 or 3 lessons from this guy. 1 or 2 or 3 lessons. Are you there? Wow, interesting. Number 1, your value is not determined by your failure. Your value is not determined by your failure. I carried some little money here. This is 1,000 Kenya shillings. And I'm going to throw this money, whoever is going to pick it. This money will be yours. It's genuine money, by the way. Genuine money. So 1,000 shillings. I'm going to fold the money, a little bit more. I'm going to fold it. And I'm going to fold it. And I'm going to fold it. And then I want to destroy this money a little bit. Then I'm going to trample it at the foot. Then I'm going to squeeze it a little bit. Do you think it is still 1,000 bob? Yes. Are you sure? Yes. Let me see whether you're serious. I'm going to throw it. I think I'll try my right. Whoever picks it, it's your money. 1, 2, 3. Who was the lucky one? So you agree with me, as much as I crushed the money bill, it didn't change its value. Let me say this. Your value is not your valuables. Your worth is not your net worth. Never be defined by failure. Never be defined by your past. Never be defined by what you did not know. Lack of money is a temporal condition. A relationship breakdown is not a permanent situation. Do not allow them to define you. Your value is intact. Point number 2. It's always too soon to quit. It's always too soon to quit. I read of a story of some 3 big bulldogs. 2 of them were in one compound and the other one was in one compound. But the 2 which were in one compound were bigger than the other one. So although it was a big bulldog, I'm going to call it the little bulldog. It crawled outside the compound and went to the 2 bigger bulldogs. And it was beaten. It was humiliated. The nose looked like it had gone through a nose grinder. It went home back crying, lying on the sun, licking its wounds in excruciating pain. It was 10 o'clock in the morning. Day number 2, the little bulldog cried, sneaked again into the other compound. And the other 2 dogs were waiting for it. And they began tearing it and biting it and beating it again. And went back home humiliated. Lie down on the sun to recover the wounds again. The 3rd day, exactly at 10 o'clock, it crawled back to meet the 2 big bulldogs. And it was beaten thoroughly. Ears were chopped off halfway. It went back to nurse its wounds. The 4th day, the little bulldog again, never learned a lesson, crawled back to the fence. The 5th day. On the 10th day, when the 2 mighty bulldogs had the little dog, they ran away. They were too tired of the fight. We don't want this. It was too stubborn. It was like the honey badger. Ever watch the honey badger? Yes. And you know the message was simple. I rule. You finally gone away. You know, nothing can withstand persistence. Nothing. If you hold on to a cause, people will not believe you for a day or 2 or 3 days. When we began Sense 101, we could hold up and tell people about what we are doing, and you get ignored for a week or 2, but they cannot ignore you for a year. That's why Wago is here. You think this is the first month I've invited her? But you cannot be ignored for a whole year if you keep insisting. If you keep insisting. You agree with what I'm saying? You see, on 29th of October 1941, Harrow School invited Sir Winston Churchill, the then Premier of the UK, to deliver a speech to some schoolboys to motivate them. He went to the podium, and then he kept quiet for a long 1 minute, like a beast staring at his prey. You could hear a pin drop. Then he told the boys, never give up. Then he kept quiet again for a long 1 minute. There was tension in the room. After 1 minute, he screamed again, never give up. Then the guy kept again quiet for a full 1 minute. Then he looked at the boys again, banged on the table, never, 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 never give up. And the Prime Minister sat down. That was the end of the speech. Now, I gave this story to my daughter Ivy, and she asked me, and did they pay him? The funny thing is, the 3-minute speech is regarded by analysts as one of the biggest speeches in the history of mankind. There was an old commercial that was featuring Michael Jordan, and his fans were saying, Michael, 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 Michael. At some point, he looked at his fans and said, hey, gentlemen, 9,000 shots I missed. 300 games I lost. 26 times I was entrusted with a game-winning shot.